nothing terrible happens. No problem, Carl. If you can only join us for a little bit, that's fine. Um, Mal is joining us. Oh, this is great. All right, let's go ahead and get this kick started, Lexi. Are you ready for this?
Yeah, I'm
Are you
ready.
ready? Because we got to do a little intro music, and you have to dance with me. It's required. Oh, here we go. Little of this, little of that. Come on. Lexi, I'm not gonna like give you a grade yet because I'm gonna let you redeem yourself later. There was
Oh
some
Lord,
dancing,
okay.
but I'm gonna need more of this. A little.
A little more action. Okay.
Folks, I'm so excited to be here with you today. Welcome, Lexie Chaudhuri, everybody. Lexi's a PR consultant and communication strategist. She's an amazing mom. She has an MBA. And I met her on LinkedIn. Like, I think that's where I socialize now. Like, this is my hangout spot and I get to meet new people. And I'm really into LinkedIn right now. And so Lexi and I connected there, had a call, and I was just super impressed with her ability. And we talked about bringing her on and having her help you all out. So I'm so excited to be jumping in. If this is the first time you're on a call with us, I'm Cesar Cervantes. I'm founder of Top Talks. We help people land and deliver keynotes and TEDx talks that connect to your brand and to your business. And so today, what we're going to be talking about is thinking about your TEDx video or a keynote video as a tool for how you then can kind of chop it up and communicate to others who you are, what you do, how does it align with your brand, how do you select which clips to share and why? And so that kind of thinking, if you've ever tried to do that, I know that I've gone through and been like, oh, I'm sure there's some AI tool that like can just do all this. And I've tried and it doesn't always pan out. And I think that there's a better way to think about it. And so that's what Lexi is going to be walking us through today. And so let's give her a warm welcome, everybody. Give it up for Lexie Chaudhuri.
Hi, thank you.
Yeah. Lexi, did I miss anything about your intro? Anything you want to add?
No, I think as a communication strategist, my goal for providing advice and just insights is to really, approach everything from a point of authenticity. And really starting there will get you a good baseline and of course like help you develop the relationships and meet the goals you're working towards.
Love it. So, well, let's just jump into where do you recommend we begin? So we either are starting to build our TEDx talk and we're going to be on the stage, or we're starting speaking, and we have some clips or we have recordings of us speaking, or they're about to come. What's kind of the first steps? Walk us through.
Yeah, well, from a PR perspective, I'm really coming at it from an earned media point of view. So thinking about, what are people reading? What are consumers or B2B business decision makers reading that would be interesting to them? So if you think about media outlets and publications, it really starts with thinking about the readership. Like, what are the people at a specific outlet reading and interested in? And then thinking, how does my story apply to them and how would that provide a solution or a different point of view that they might be seeking? So, my understanding, all of you have your different verticals and your different areas of expertise for your businesses. And when you think about your talk, really think about how are you going to share your personal narrative and share your authentic point of view through your TEDx talk. Because to me, that's really almost like an owned content opportunity to own your narrative and your story. Whereas from an earned perspective, if you were to ever be interviewed by a journalist, if a journalist is doing their job and maintaining journalistic integrity, there's going to be a really thoughtful process for the questions they're asking you. So, in that regard, you don't have control completely of what that story looks like. It's really up to the reporter. So, when you think about your TEDx talk, think about, if I were to supplement maybe my earned media approach for my business with sharing the content my narrative from my TEDx talk, how can I share what's different here than what I might secure in maybe a Business Insider article where it's really focused on just one point of view on how my area of expertise is a solution for a reader?
Mm. Yeah, so my takeaway here is to to both connect it to like what might be trending or going on,
Mhm.
but then also that it is reflective of you. Are those kind of the two pieces that we should be looking at?
Yeah, I would look at it from like two points of view or two sides. So really think about, from an earned media perspective, what is trending, what's topical, what's interesting to the readership that you're trying to reach. And then from an owned media perspective, as you talk about your own personal story through your TEDx talk, really think about, what are the salient points that I have the opportunity to share through that talk and the key takeaways that I really want to carry with me as part of my personal brand and even maybe as part of my business pillars for how I approach my work. And use that as your guiding point and a reference point too for future earned media opportunities. So, really own your narrative in the TEDx talk. Think about the why. Why would people be interested? And think broadly too about the different types of audiences you're reading because or reaching, excuse me. So a lot of times, people might think, well, I have a consumer facing business, so I need to reach a consumer audience. But there's so many business decision makers in between that are everyday consumers as well. So it's really helpful to think about your end goal too from a B2B perspective. Like, who are all the people along the line that are everyday humans that might find my personal story from my TEDx talk interesting?
Yeah, beautiful. And as Lexi is talking about earned media, just to be clear, that what she's referring to is essentially grabbing the attention of journalists, of people that are creating content, and finding what you're doing to then create an article or to spotlight it in some kind of way. And to do that, what I'm understanding is that it's not just about you and your work. It's about how they're connecting it to something else that may already be going on in the world, or how it serves people in some kind of way, or how it challenges a narrative, perhaps. Does that sound right, Lexi?
That's exactly right. And it's really thinking about, how is my point of view uniquely different from the next person? And I think a lot of times, in order to get that unique point of view, you have to be vulnerable in certain ways. And be vulnerable as a leader, be reflective, be thoughtful, and how you share your story, and even how you go out and promote your content after the fact once you have your TEDx talk.
Okay, good. So the next thing I want to talk about is kind of like the different platforms and then also how we are intentionally getting the attention of journalists or other folks, right? And
Mhm.
friends, at any time, you can go ahead and drop questions in the chat if you have them. We'll also leave some time towards the end so that you can ask Lexi directly. But feel free to drop in the chat at any time. So. All right. Let me reverse that. Let me ask the latter question, which is like we're all interested in like, hey, how do we get the right people to look at what we're putting out there to potentially then use it for an earned media opportunity, which is the best kind because that's like truly like organic and like, truly a journalist is saying like this is interesting. I wanna highlight it. So how do we do that?
Yeah, so again, think about where your audience is. So, excuse me, where are they consuming content first and foremost? So we know everyone's online on their phone. Think about, who is your target audience? Like what age are they? What type of media are they consuming? It really starts there. Are they on LinkedIn? Are they on Instagram? Is it a younger audience consuming different streaming channels? And is your brand showing up there? So really it first starts, I think, with a solid understanding of who you're trying to reach. And broadly speaking, a lot of people get in the conundrum of trying to reach everyone, and you can't be everything to everyone. So you really have to think about who you're trying to reach from a very specific point of view. Because it goes back to like that 80/20 rule. And so, you are going to get the ROI from targeting a very specific audience that is looking for the business solution you're offering, essentially. So it starts there with a solid understanding of your target audience, and then it moves out from there. If you're thinking about it from an earned media strategy, I think about, what are the publications I'm reading? Where are the channels I'm going? So I like to peruse Reddit. I'm on LinkedIn all the time because I find reporters to be very active there and sharing the types of content they're looking for. And then, also obviously reading the headlines, reading news, and understanding what's being covered at a given moment, and having a solid understanding of like an economic environment too will help you guide your, I guess, your business narrative direction in terms of, like what is impacting consumers right now, and how can my services be a solution for that? Or what is impacting business decision makers right now, and how is my business offering a solution for that? So really thinking about your target audience and the end goal for them.
And then, but what about like, identifying particular journalists who might write on a particular subject or highlight particular topics?
Oh, right. Sorry. So, to answer that part of the question, do a Google search and I always filter by news, but start with, who is writing about this topic? What is the latest news article in the past 3 months on this specific subject matter, in my vertical, in my area of expertise? And what are the business outside forces like impacting my industry? So start there, and that's where you start identifying who are those reporters. My recommendation from a business professional perspective is to find those people on LinkedIn and follow them.
Mm.
And in this day and age, reporters do want access to C-level executives directly. But just to pull back the curtain on what they're dealing with, because the media industry has changed vastly, especially in the last 5 years. Newsrooms are getting cut. There's less reporters and editors to manage the massive amount of incoming pitches that they're receiving on a daily basis. So
Mm.
sometimes, it's not necessarily that your story isn't interesting or that it's not landing with them. It's that the timing's not right, or they got pulled on deadline for another higher priority story, or it's just not the right group of people. They don't have enough people to interview to make like a fruitful story for their readership. So it oftentimes, takes really a thoughtful approach to connecting with them. And I would say organically, it starts by first reading the publications that you're interested in getting published in, understanding the reporter and their writing style, what they're looking for. And then, from there, if you happen to follow them on LinkedIn or any other social platform, commenting and engaging and sharing their news article really goes a long way, especially from a PR perspective. And I say this if I were to give advice to someone just entering public relations, is, really be authentic and engaging in that way. That way, when you have an ask and you send them a pitch with a really great story idea, they're more apt to open your email when they see your name.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I think that's exactly right. So let's take a step back, and I want to think about, let's say, let's say I have a topic, that's maybe more personal growth related or feels kind of general, right? How should I think about, maybe general is not the right word. Like it's broad, it's big, it feels universal in some kind of way. How do I create specificity out of something like that, like personal growth related, and attach it to something that's trending? How would you go about that?
I think again, it starts with authenticity. So one of the cringiest things I think someone could maybe consider doing, and I've seen it happen, is newsjacking to the point of, making a story about yourself when the story is much bigger than you and should be focused on like the subject matter at hand, if it's like a community issue or things of that nature. Because there is a time and a place, and those type when you approach your communication
Hmm.
that way, that is also reflective of your personal brand. So again, start with an authentic, the way I always think about it, and one of the ways I was taught about approaching social media early on, when I first started out in my career, is think about communicating with these people as if you were in person. Like, would you approach that situation in the same way if you were to walk up to someone in person and be like, I'm sorry you're going through that, but hey, by the way, this was my experience and this is how I got through it.
Right.
So, in order to avoid doing that, I think it starts with really, what is your vertical? What is your area of expertise? And what do you feel like your unique special thing is that you bring to the table, whether it's in business and friendships, in relationships? Start there, and then build out, like this is how my story applies. And I think if you go about it from an organic perspective, if not necessarily newsjacking, but um, thinking empathetically, like, hey, I went through this and maybe someone else could benefit from me sharing my story, that is always going to land so much better than trying to take over a conversation.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's a way to do it, right? So, and maybe it's actually not a story that you should try to like connect your work to. Maybe you shouldn't mention you at all. Maybe this is not the moment where you go, and by the way, here's a clip from my TEDx talk, right? In this particular moment. But what is the like what would be an example? Let's say that my topic is like I speak on grief, right? And that's an example where you want to be careful that you don't feel like you're promoting in a moment where like grief um is there's something trending about that. So give me an example of like where I would say, okay, I have some content and I also want to maybe align it with a moment or something that's going on. How would I do that?
Great question. And an apropos topic, given everything happening in the world. So, I think from that perspective, it's sharing your personal story from an authentic point of view without an ask. So in that case, it's like, hey, like this is something I went through. I shared my story here for anyone that might be able to relate. And in those instances, it's, drop the sales approach, drop the ask, drop the link to sign up for anything, drop the link to sell anything. It's really, this is my content and I just want to share it organically because someone else might be able to benefit from it. And I think in those instances, that's where it really comes off as authentic because the minute you put in that, as a marketer, it's easy to want to put like, what's the call to action? And you put in that ask and ROI. I think that's when it kind of changes the nature of why you're sharing the content. And so, take it one step back and just organically share and think about it as if you're sharing with a neighbor or sharing with a friend and help and start building that trust with the community from that point of view. Because once they trust you, they're going to find you, they're going to seek you out, follow you on your social channels. And, if your contact information is available, they're going to reach out to you. So, there is a very organic approach that I think is sensitive to subjects like that, where it's, you want to share your story, you want to help other people, but you're not trying to sell per se.
Yeah. And maybe it's not that like if there was some other event that took place, maybe it's not naming that event, but just being a part of the conversation and alluding generally to what's happening in the world, right? So it wouldn't have to be like, hey, this thing happened now about me, right? Or about my topic or my talk or what have you. Does that sound right? Like you could be a part of the conversation without having to call attention to a particular event.
Yes, that's correct. And I think, there's so much happening that it does leave it, more broadly speaking, as an evergreen piece of shareable content that could be shared in any instance of grief,
Right.
excuse me, in your specific example.
Good. I want to move to a question real quick. Carl says, have folks used AI to find targeted journalists? Is that something that you're using, Lexi, currently?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really great approach. Anytime you're starting with a search and starting with a thoughtful approach to finding the right people, is good in my book because so many people do not even think about what a reporter's beat is or what they're writing about before pitching them, and it kind of sours the taste in their mouth for all PR people. So I love it. Start with do your recon. But, AI is not foolproof. You still have to do your due diligence. And so just because it gave you a list of editors doesn't mean that that masthead it pulled it from on the website or the internet is up to date. And again, because the media environment is evolving and changing so quickly, reporters are moving newsrooms. They can be with one publication one week and then out on their own writing for Substack the next. And it's just the nature of the industry right now. So, do use it as a starting point, but do your due diligence to authentically like verify, go read their column, go follow them on their social channels, and use it in that way.
Are you, so if we created, so I have a bias right now with LinkedIn. I just think for speakers, it's like the place to be. I think there's a ton of traction there, especially if you're trying to connect with earned media. I think X is still a place to be, formerly Twitter, right? I've never used it, so I don't know if that's also a place in which we should be still be thinking about. But my question is this: no matter where we're posting and creating content, do you think it's appropriate to, like, if you have or have built a relationship with a journalist or people that follow and connect with that can produce earned media, do you tag them in post? Do you comment with them in there, or are you really just kind of putting it out there to see who's catching it? What do you recommend there? Because you don't want to exhaust that relationship either.
Right. And I actually think from my perspective, that's somewhat of a faux pas because, journalists are receiving so many pitches in their inbox a day. I think, depending on how many pitches or what their responsibilities are, they may not see a pitch on LinkedIn or have enough information to really run with it and take the time to like, oh, let me seek out this story myself. I ideally that would happen in a perfect world, but they are very busy. And so from that perspective, think about sharing your own content for the purposes of sharing it with your target audience and readers in that audience, not necessarily the reporter. And then to get on the reporter's radar, once again, like go to their page, understand what they're sharing. If you like a news article they wrote, comment, tell them you liked it. And then, that's where I think being a PR specialist and working with someone in PR comes into play because I reach out on behalf of my clients. So, a lot of times if my clients have a TEDx talk, that's a great example that I can pitch them for other opportunities. So, if I'm pitching an expert source and they have a TEDx talk, then I can say, hey, you can hear, here's 30 seconds of what their point of view is all about if you want to take a look. And then it helps the editorial team too keep you in mind for future speaking opportunities. It's a great, I guess, asset to have in your toolkit if you're looking to build up your speaker profile on other platforms. And really, thinking about it from how can I just provide the most helpful information to an editor when they're looking for a source? And then how can I be that source? So it's not necessarily that you're going to pitch them by tagging them on LinkedIn. It's more so, the more organically you reach more people and you streamline and cultivate your LinkedIn following, the more likely that that will end up in the feed of the right person who
Right.
want to see it.
Right. And in a way, they want to feel like they're discovering it, right? And this is a question that I have to you, like how much of what journalists will pick comes from a pitch versus something they find or seek out, do you think?
Good question. I really think it depends on how big their news team is and what their responsibilities are. They have a managing editor too, and a team that they have to answer to. So sometimes, they'll sit around. If they receive a good pitch and they have good sources, they'll take that to their morning meeting. They'll pitch the story, and if enough people like it, it's a go. If not, it might be backburnered for a little while, especially, I found this in local media outreach. Gosh, this is 10 plus years ago. So we've all moved to streaming platforms now. But when I did pitch local media, that really was a case for morning news. It was, like, here is this great community story we're pitching. And they would keep it in the queue. But if an emergency happened, if something happened with the city, those stories just get pushed down and sometimes they don't make the cut.
Yeah. All right, so just quick recap, everybody. Like when you're thinking about your content, from speaking, for example, whether that's a keynote that you gave or your TEDx, you're really thinking about, from the mindset of PR and earned media, like how are we connecting this to a broader conversation, to something that's trending, and how are we giving, how are we adding value rather than sort of, doing that cringe thing where you connect this thing and then, by the way, here's me and this is me, and here's my link to buy the thing, right? Think of it as a long game. You're building credibility, you're building the conversation, you're connecting with the players in the community of what you speak about, what your business does, how it serves people. Build those relationships because long term, that is what's going to come back. And even if you're, directly pitching via email to journalists, just know that over time, if that relationship is built and they see your content, something will turn up. Something will be like, okay, now this is right. This is the thing. And people like Lexie are also great people to connect with, right? They're already in the space, they're doing something. I've heard from PR consultants before where they just think of something for me and there's no gain for them other than to continue to build that relationship. And so think of your work, what you're giving as something that you're going to be doing for a long time. And so the relationships are everything. Also, moving to the platform. Um, oh, no problem, Janine. We'll see you. We'll see you soon. Thanks for that comment. Okay, so now thinking about the platforms, are there specific kinds of content that work better on certain platforms that you see to like talk to us about that LinkedIn versus Facebook, Instagram, etc.
Yeah. Well, I will speak subjectively from an earned media and PR specialist point of view because I will give credit to so many media team members that are specialists in this. I think it really depends on your audience, but we all know that people have such short attention spans nowadays. So really think about your content in terms of, 10, 15, and maybe max 30-second clips.
Hmm.
I would rarely say people are probably going to spend a full minute watching something on a platform like Instagram, but don't quote me on that. I'm sure there is data to back that up and that provide an actual quantitative source for that. But think about it in short clips. So as you give your most salient points, can those be cut down into maybe 15 to 30-second narratives? And even, creatively speaking, there's so many different platforms you can use, Canva being one of them, CapCut. And there's so many amazing people online too that you can find to help support you with that content creation. But I would even think, you could take part of your narrative from your TEDx talk and create new visuals and maybe overlay it. I don't know what the marketing rights are for how you use your content, but, get creative with the visuals you're sharing and even, taking out some of your points from your TEDx talk and putting that in written form too, so that you're creating a narrative that can be searchable from your captions. So, always on LinkedIn. I actually think LinkedIn is becoming more and more of a popular channel for so many people, especially with changes that have gone on from Twitter to X. However, with that comes a flood of non-valuable information. So you're going to get more content that's less meaningful as people kind of flood the channel and try to like populate it with your own channel. So again, go back to your authentic points. What is your unique point of view and why is it different? And I would actually say too, you could use ChatGPT and AI as your starting point as you think about like what do I want to say on LinkedIn? But I always think start with your own first draft. Like people want to read things the way people speak. They don't necessarily want to read, an academic post. Well, maybe if you're an academic, that would make sense and that's your normal vernacular. But really think about how you talk every day to people and write your post from there. And then use the AI to refine, this is the caption I'm going to include with my LinkedIn content. And that I think is really going to make you sound more human. Because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, your humanness, your sincerity, your narrative, that is what everyone is drawn to. And that's what uniquely makes you you when it comes to competing with the flurry of content we're seeing right now with bots and AI.
Yeah, I totally agree. Look, I think video works across platforms. I'm very um, uh, curious about the short form 10-second, 15-second, because it used to be like 30, 60 seconds that people were really looking at. But now I think you're exactly right. Like so the video grabs attention. It's like the moment, right? And then the like especially on LinkedIn, people are more willing to engage in the actual content thereafter. Like, what am I writing in there? How am I going deeper? And especially on LinkedIn, there's a strong aversion to like AI written material because it's like it feels empty, right? Anywhere, I think there's just more and more pushback on that. So I completely agree. Don't use it to create content. Use it to either touch up or create titles or those kinds of things to brainstorm. But the actual writing of it, just let that be yours. And over time, your voice will, if you're not a great writer, your voice is developed, and it's just a muscle that you have to exercise. I love this. I want to move us now to any questions that folks might have. If it's specific to your topic or content, that's great. Lexi can give you some great insights into, hey, here's what I speak about. How would I do, X, for example. If you have a question, just raise your hand, or you could just come off of mute and ask it now. Go ahead, Sarah.
Unmute. Okay. Hi, everybody.
Hey.
Hey, Sarah.
I'm in Santa Barbara, California. And my question is, I did a TEDx talk, thanks to Caesar, about a month ago at University of Kansas. It's not edited or published, I guess, up yet. But my question is, the title was The Power of an Emotional First Aid Kit. And I used one section of it to mention connection because I'm a matchmaker by trade or profession. But
Uh-huh.
so I'm trying to find, I feel very confused because part of me wants to just promote it for the mental health, wellness part of it because I lost two family members to suicide. So it's like I don't mention that in the talk, but it's definitely about how to handle crisis and tragedy. But then how do I also include it as part of like the connection piece for my matchmaking business? Am I making sense there? Like, should I just only go the mental health?
No, I think, think about it in terms of different verticals. And so if you think about it from the matchmaking business, I would kind of take out that other vertical that you're focusing on there and completely think about the consumer and the matchmaking process nowadays. And, what are the current headlines happening around couples meeting each other and matchmaking? I did just see a headline recently, and I'm sure some people have seen this trending, but like when our grandparents met their spouses, everyone was meeting in person at these community events, church,
Hmm.
school, things like
Hmm.
that. And then, in the early aughts, meeting people online was such a small portion of that graph. And now you see that, and it's like 70, maybe 70% plus people meet their connection or their person online.
Hmm.
So think about it from the consumer like news point of view. And then also, that is a very consumer friendly topic. And I think if you go online and use even like a channel like Reddit to kind of information mine, you'll read so many. I even just come across them being a woman perusing Reddit with like female
Hmm.
focused channels targeted at me, obviously with targeting. But there's channels where women are like challenged by meeting people. And so I would kind of use those channels to do some information mining and understand, what are these women looking for? And then how can my toolkit be a solution for them?
Okay.
Mhm.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
So yeah,
So
I
what
would
I heard,
actually
Lexi, was that
break it into two.
you can use it for both, but that you're not overlapping them. You're letting them be separate messages, right?
Yeah, I would completely think about them as like a different, almost like a different business vertical for you because one really is your matchmaking and the other one is a completely applicable different scenario and situation.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Sarah. All right, who else? Other questions? Dana, Carla, Garrett, Kathy, Mal, Michael, Sage. What's burning? Dana, go ahead.
Yes, I think, I've been on LinkedIn. I guess I've had my business about 5.5 years. And I think the algorithms just keep changing. And you think you figured it out, and then there's something else. And then I've heard a lot about, oh, it's how many times you're engaging with all of the people in LinkedIn. And I don't, who has time to constantly be writing? It's like I just want to be myself out there. Um,
Mhm.
so, how do you stay up on what are the latest trends in getting your brand out there in a way that,
Manageable.
yeah, I mean, that's a lot. Just you could have a full-time job just doing LinkedIn every day. Um,
Yes.
Absolutely.
so curious from a communication expert side of things, what you're seeing lately. Um, and any recommendations you have for just kind of being in there, but not having to be all the time, all day, every day.
For sure. That is such a great question and a completely valid point because we're all like busy professionals and more like it's taking up so much more of our time to be on certain channels just to maintain that. So I will say, LinkedIn, because the algorithm's always changing, the one thing that is constant and that is not changing is who you are and how you authentically want to approach your business. And so don't let that detour you from being on the channel, but don't feel like you have to keep up with a rat race of like, oh, the algorithm shifted and now I have to start like liking 10 articles a day and engaging on so many pieces of content a week. Think of first, I would say like the first step is to really cultivate your feed. So you can be connected to someone on LinkedIn, but you don't have to follow them. And that's really a key to creating the kind of feed and LinkedIn environment that's going to be most conducive for your mental health, your business, and for the type of content that's going to make an impact for you and like the target audience you want to reach. So start there. I would say go through all of your network connections and consider, if I follow this person, is this like a connection where I'm going to get insights from them for my business or I want to maintain that relationship with them? And then once you cultivate that and kind of narrow it down, think about, who am I trying to target? So maybe you do want to go through and add some reporters that are talking about your business vertical. And then you can build it that way. So from that perspective, make it a palatable environment for you. So that you feel energized to go there. And then when you
Yeah.
have something meaningful to say, that's when you want to share it. Of course, consistency is key. If you want to build like a super large follower, you're going to hear all of these like experts say, like, you have to do this, this, and this and come up with a formula. I don't have that. And, you could probably put it into ChatGPT and it'll make quantitative recommendations on how many times you should be doing that. But go trust your gut. I say, go back to what feels comfortable for you. If it feels right and you're energized about sharing something, then go online and share it. If you really happen to resonate with an article a reporter shared and you want to make a comment, then go online and comment. And those meaningful interactions will compound over time and in your best interest.
Mm.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah,
Dana,
no.
I'll just add a couple of things to that. I think that was all excellent. And I totally agree. Like the game can feel like just exhausting and there's so much advice out there about it. And that's also because there are really sophisticated ways to do it, right? But in a similar way, like I have clients who have a few thousand views on their talk, and it's completely transformed their business. And I have clients who have hundreds of thousands of views, but they didn't use it sort of in a way that, to grow the business, right? So it didn't. And so, in a similar way, when you think about what you're putting out there, if it's focused and it's consistent, and if it feels um, like it's going to do the same thing because you're being intentional about it. So, for example, if you said, I have 1 hour a week to spend on LinkedIn, but you scheduled it and you said, in this hour, here's what I'm going to do. There's a couple of things. The way that I would think about it is like this. There's the content itself, and then there's growing the followers, right? Creating content will naturally grow followers, but what you can do is you would go and follow people who are in your space that do similar work, that have an audience. You follow them, you look at in the comments of who's commenting, and you go and you request them to be a connection and you say, hey, I saw your comment on so and so's post. My content is also on etc. Please, just wanted to connect with you because I think it might also be helpful. And what that does is, even though it's small and you're building it, a handful at a time, they're people that are already engaging. So then they're going to engage on your content and it's going to grow naturally from there. So that's one tip I would say that you can just do every week. The second thing is think about content, just like Lexi said, as something that feels like it's effortless. On LinkedIn, you could do just text and that works. And it could be 2 paragraphs. Now, and you just create it in a way that feels easy and flows and it makes one point. It's fun and it's your voice. And you could create a bunch of those and schedule them out weeks in advance. So you don't have to worry about, oh, the editing of the video, all of these pictures. That is good to add when you can. But if it exhausts you, you could remove it and all of a sudden you have content that you can create consistently.
Yeah, and I have an intern kind of helping me with some of that, but it's the algorithms change. We got to do this now. And it's like, what? It's like, you got to do more
Yes.
video or you got to don't do just text. And I'm like, whoa, if I
Mostly
feel like,
that's yeah.
Yeah.
so what, I'm just curious that,
I would just, one last thought on that front too is, go to your own personal page and do your own audit. So if you were to look at it as someone visiting your page, what does it look like? And
Yeah.
from the perspective of, keeping up with trends, I do think it's nice to have varied content on your page. And then you have the opportunity to save your highlighted post, or maybe it's the most meaningful one, or you can save different media types. If you have your long form video up or a link to it on YouTube shared, I would make that a profile post that you save to your personal page. So I would start with, curate your personal LinkedIn page with the type of content that gives people a variety. So maybe it's just written form. Make sure you get a few images up there of stills of you on the page with the post, and then also save your video up there too.
That's great. Thank you so
Yes,
much, both
yeah.
of you. That was
Yeah.
great. Great,
You
great
bet,
talk.
Dana. All right, so we've got Kathy as well, who's got a question. Go ahead, Kathy.
Hey everybody. This is helpful. I want to, Lexi, you said some really interesting things. So did you, Caesar, about, we all know that the algorithm has changed. I know the big thing now is saves. I don't understand it, but that's okay. And we're all figuring it out. And going back to sort of getting PR or tracking with journalists. I think that one of the interesting things is I never had a problem with targeting journalists that were in my area. I think one of the things that's changed is, you know, every time a new trend comes on board, everyone's like, I do AI or I do uncertainty. I do, and it's like, as somebody who, and Caesar knows, has a comedy background and an improv background, like these are my Olympics. I trained for this. I never, like, I didn't have to say I focus on flexibility because that's always what improv training and improv thinking is. So I
Right.
find myself, it's interesting. It's gotten a little bit more challenging to stay true to my thing, which is, look, I led teams for many years in tech. I understand the strategy piece, but I'm also a comedian who understands what that brings. And I find that I'm competing now with all these people that are like, I'm an uncertainty expert. It's it's just a little bit more challenging. It's not impossible. And I'm wondering if you can go back to like that whole thing about targeting, like maybe my feed, or maybe I just need to I don't know what I'm doing. It's just I know that I had a bunch of traffic and I know the algorithms said screw that and it's all about who saves your content. So I feel like I'm starting over and it's weird.
Hmm.
Well, I will say the good news is that you have content. So you are definitely not starting over, especially now with GEO. I think that LinkedIn is very beneficial for that because it does, in the long run, compound over time. And so that's the content that is feeding the search engines and the AI bots or an AI when people are searching for maybe someone in your area of expertise.
Mhm.
From the perspective of trying to stand out, how do you stand out in a sea full of experts? And I do the
Mhm.
quotes because another headline, I read the news every day, and I just saw another headline too, where, people are portraying themselves to be professionals that are not. And it gets getting really bad if they don't have
Mhm.
a doctorate or a medical degree or something like that. But I think again, go back to staying true to yourself. You said you have a unique Canadian point of view. My first thing is, oh, well, what is that? That's what makes you different from anyone in the US to start with. So I would start there. Like, what from like being in your country helps you see the business environment
Oh
or
no, I'm sorry, not Canadian, comedian.
oh, comedian. Okay, sorry. But even from
Eh,
okay, so
comedian,
from
eh?
a comedian's point of view, how are
Yeah,
you applying that? You said you had a tech background too,
I do.
correct?
I spent years leading teams, so I combine strategy with actually being on stages for 25 years and teaching and still doing comedy. And I find that, but I find that um, the language gets so similar. Like I see people using almost exactly, and I think it's because people are all writing with AI and it's
Mhm.
converging. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And you're like, no.
yeah.
So I think that's one of the things that I've found it not impossible, but just a little bit more challenging.
But have you, Kathy, also just to interject, are you saying that the primary concern is that you feel like you had traction and it feels like that has gone away? Is that right?
Well, I think it's just gotten harder. There's
Right.
a lot more sludge now.
When did that shift happen?
Oh, I think it happened in the last, like, I would say maybe 6, 8 months with,
Okay.
I think, and I don't think it's by accident. I think it's the convergence of a couple different things, including the algorithm on LinkedIn.
Yes. And so
Mhm.
the first shift I would make is instead I would remove the thought that you're competing with other people because yes, in a way we are, but that's actually that's not helpful to see it as like part of the problem because that's we can't do anything about that,
Oh no,
right?
I get that. It's
Yeah.
more that people are using those words, and I'm like, you're a poser.
Right.
It's
Right.
it's definitely it's frustrating for sure, and I think it's happening across the board to so many people that are experts and specialists.
Yeah.
Right.
From the perspective of, asking about saves, I think that's a really good qualitative measure, because it means people are interested and invested enough to want to go back and
Right.
read the
Right.
article. And that can be even more meaningful because it means they need to take the time to be thoughtful about what they're reading
Yeah.
versus just quickly skimming over some. It's easy to like. I think it's harder to
Yeah.
read a full article.
Yeah.
But
I haven't figured it out. So
what results in saves is also something that can be um, so not just articles, right? I think what I have when I think about what I've saved, it's often like a visual or an infographic that I think is pretty cool and that I could see myself going back to because it clearly explains a process in a visual kind of way. And so that's the research I would do is like, what are people actually saving? And then you can try to think about, oh, okay, what content could I be creating where that occurs? Infographics is one in particular that people tend to save more often.
Good point.
yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I am doing the research. I'll let you know. I'll let you know what I find.
And by the way, Kathy, I think you're crushing it. Every time I see you on there, it looks to me like you're just really putting out some amazing stuff.
Oh, thank you. I do spend a lot of time thinking about it. I really try not to put out something just meaningless just to post. I really do. But I find, and maybe it's a curation feed, Lexi, going back to curating the feed better. I find that I've had to be very ruthless in like, what do I want my feed to be?
Yeah.
And on LinkedIn, and I like people very much, but it's like I'm seeing stuff that I'm like, ew. So
Yeah.
I think I need to do a better job of that so that I can see the really good things and connect where it makes sense. So yeah.
100%. And so that it opens you up to finding the right people too that you need to attract and want to attract in terms of your followers.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I really think that's a great approach is just like curating your feed first and foremost, and then, ride the wave of the algorithm. If you're putting content out there and it's authentic and valuable, as it's up there and it's not getting lost. Know that it's still feeding search engines, it's still supporting your overall long-term strategy.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Kathy. All
Yeah.
right, we got time for one more. Michael, what's happening?
Yes, yes, sorry, I can't be on camera today.
That's okay.
Let's see, I'll add a bit of value to the LinkedIn conversation, but then I have a question. I just saw a presentation by Richard Bliss, who's the LinkedIn guy. In
Hmm.
addition to saves, he said two things that have changed in algorithm are that it looks at your last 1,000 interactions and bases who it shows to first based on that. And that carousels are now favored over videos. So it's switched.
Okay, cool.
But my question is kind of related to Sarah in that I have two topics. I have um, finding your purpose, and I have storytelling in the digital world. So storytelling with a bend on social media. And so just maybe any suggestions on how to appear on social media, given that I have, thinking of, LinkedIn, but then also the Instagram, the TikToks, and that they're two, they can be overlap, but a lot of areas not related topics. A lot of people will say choose one and but yeah, it is.
What's the question again, Michael? Is it what do you mean by appear?
Just so since it's two different topics with two different audiences. So the storytelling is a corporate audience, giving a program manager summit, it could be a sales conference where the finding your purpose in life, it could be anyone, the churches. I'm going to speak for Santa Clara University next week. So, it's two different audiences of who
Yeah,
pay for it. And
got
just
it.
how any suggestions on how to show up on social media and other places with that.
Yeah. Thank you for that clarification for your audience. You know, from like a corporate audience and business perspective, I would actually separate it by channel. So I would use LinkedIn for that business audience where you're trying to reach corporate event planners that are looking for speakers. And really utilize your channel in that way. And then think about, other more consumer facing channels, maybe like Instagram or Facebook. I always like Instagram. I'm millennial, so I'm partial to Facebook. I mean, sorry, Instagram. I'm on Facebook because my parents are, but um, you know,
It's all
um,
meta.
I know it is all the same. It's like what I decide to share on one channel versus the other, to be honest. But, think about Instagram as maybe a more general channel, like a YouTube channel too. Where can you share more general content that could be a reference point for the corporate audience on LinkedIn
Yeah.
to go back to and source? It's like, oh, like this could be a potential speaker for our event. Does he have a full 3 minutes talk that I can go to his YouTube channel and watch? But I would, off the top of my head, I would think about separating your audience by channel just based on, the nature of the type of content shared on each.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I think that's great. The only thing I'll add to that too, like this is a segmenting question, right? And so if you were to think about it from an email perspective, let's say you have an email list. If you don't, get it, start using email. To me, that's actually my primary form of where I engage and build an audience, and then they follow you in other places, right? Of their preference. But from a segmenting perspective, you want to give people the option of also choosing. And so, like, if they were joining your email list, you would have two separate ways in which they would subscribe. Like, I'm this audience or I'm this audience. That way, you're curating what they receive. And I think that's a perfect, Lexi, you got a perfect answer to that. Is that if you segmented them from channel, that's a perfect way to do that because then they're only seeing that on that particular channel. Because you can't control it like you could via email, where they can, it's one channel essentially, but you can split it. It would be very, I'm not even sure how you would do that, and
Mm,
because they're seeing your feed essentially. So I
right.
think that answers it. Did you have a follow-up question, Michael?
No, no, no. That answers it. Thank you.
Fantastic. Folks, we have come to time. Can you please give one more round of applause to Lexi for joining us today?
Thank you, everyone.
So good, Lexi. Thank you so much. Please connect with her on LinkedIn or on Instagram, where the millennials are. And she's just
We're
an
on
amazing
LinkedIn too.
resource.
Yeah. No, thank you so much, Cesar. I appreciate it. It was so nice to speak with you all. Thank you for the questions and engaging conversation.
Is there other places you want people to find you, Lexi?
Those channels are great. I would say, LinkedIn is a great channel to connect with me if you want to understand and see what I'm up to on the PR front.
I love it. And this is your chance to totally redeem yourself, Lexi.
Participation.
Oh, here we go. Come on, y'all. Get with it. Yeah, you did it. A plus. A plus.
Awesome. Thank
Have a good
you.
weekend. Bye,
Take
everybody.
care. Bye.